Thank you so much. I am Stanford Chidge, and you are watching, and apparently there's one or two people in Mixler who are daft enough to listen to a football show that is actually on TV. But hey, who am I to question your logic?
Perhaps they're looking at it with the Mixler sound and the sound turned off.
Maybe. You know what we used to call that in the old days, Jonathan?
Listening to radio?
No, they used to call it
Oh,
simulcasts. Simulcasts?
Yeah.
You know, where you're like on TV and radio at the same time.
You're a bit older than me.
I don't think I am.
No, I think
not judging by that receding hairline.
It's a wig, actually. It's just
yeah, but you can afford better makeup departments than me. Anyway,
you're getting mauled by the tigers.
He is. Yeah, the tigers are paying.
Sound like
but I do love him really. But remember, Rick, he has been promoted this week. Last week we had him on the end. He got so upset.
I'm working my way up.
He got so upset that he actually moved out of shot. He said, you haven't got... Darling, you haven't got me in shot properly. I'm moving away.
Exactly like that.
And he got up and walked away after the knickers incident.
Yeah, I did.
You got knickered, didn't you?
I got nickered.
You shouldn't have brought up the old laundry incident in Southampton, should you? Anyway,
I did. I think
this is supposed to be the serious bit.
So you're telling me that I'm the rear end of the donkey today?
You are, actually.
I told you.
You're the engine, Rick.
I've got the flapping mouth here.
If you're the engine, work this out. If you're the engine in the rear end, what does that make him? I'd say it makes him the udders. That's all I'm saying. Anyway,
I bend for no man.
Exactly. We are going to look. Okay. We've done very well at not talking about football and wasting time. We've done very well about talking about nonsense. But this is a serious part of the show. This is the reason why I brought this great man onto the show. But Rick is a great mate, apart from everything else. But he is also the Chelsea's official historian, and what he doesn't know about what's happened in Chelsea's past
will soon be exposed.
Will soon be exposed, exactly. Isn't worth knowing about, is what I was going to say. But I happened to have a chat with Rick at the in the pub before the Southampton game on New Year's Day, and we got talking. We both have a great love and fascination for military history. And Rick started talking to me about something that he's working on at the moment, which happens to have something to do with Chelsea and World War One.
Yeah.
In particular, and of course, it's the 100th anniversary this year of World War One.
Yeah, it's a research project. As you say, lots of people are commemorating the First World War, not celebrating. I think it's important.
No, commemorating.
Commemorating. And
we do have a few German listeners, so we
and a couple of politicians who are trying to celebrate it.
Exactly. They're trying to skew it in their way. But as the club historian, I wanted to think of ways that we could commemorate Chelsea's connection with World War One, and it's always been a fascination for me because in the museum we up until it's slightly frustrating because up until this year we had a trench scene and a whole exploration of all the issues around World War One and football because the establishment basically really sort of had it in for football during World War One and wanted it all closed down and was saying these are all skivers, the players were not joining up, the supporters weren't joining up. Absolute nonsense. And it's been a research...
Quick interruption there, Rick, because in my little bit of research, something that really tickled me pink, particularly in view of what I was watching on the telly last night, but I had no idea that one of the main objectors to it was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
That's for real, isn't it?
Yeah.
He had a real problem with football going on during World War One.
Lots of people did, and I think he had a problem, didn't he? His son, I think,
his son died.
And he
attempted to contact him all the time.
Absolutely, it really skewed the way that he viewed it. But he was a real patriot, and we're not saying that there was no patriotism at all, unlike Mr. Gove would suggest. But the point was that Chelsea reacted.
He's a banned
really
word on this show, by the way, Gove.
Oh, well, good.
He's on the list. Gove, you're on the list, okay?
My wife's a teacher, so you can imagine what I think about him.
I'm just a human being, so I have a natural antipathy towards him.
You know, through the brilliant Chelsea programme called the Chelsea Chronicle, we're able to catalogue. These are great historic documents about the mud that was flung at Chelsea and the way that they responded to it. And they responded it in two ways. One was to sort of give a voice to the soldiers who were at the front, who were Chelsea fans, who are writing in and saying, tell us how they're getting on and send us a programme out and things like that. The other was to say, from supporters, we're not sure because some of us are older than, you know, we can't join up with all the pals. Others are saying we have joined up. So to say we're shirkers, and Chelsea actually printed a full page in the programme showing a crowd at Chelsea, everyone in uniform. And they were saying that, you know, this idea that you can vilify football and say football is not doing its patriotic duty was nonsense. Secondly, they decided to do something practical, which were two things they did practical. One was that they wanted to set up a footballers' battalion, so the 17th Middlesex became the footballers' battalion, and Chelsea contributed more players to that than any other club in London.
Any idea how many?
In a couple of dozen or something.
Because Leyton Orient, or Clapton Orient, as they were known then, you know, they basically volunteered their entire team, didn't they?
Yes.
Early doors.
And Arsenal, you know, volunteered. They went into, I think, armament, you know, provision and things like that.
Well, they
as
would
you'd
do.
expect,
The Gunners, yeah. Woolwich Arsenal.
Not coffee plantations.
When they
or
were
anything,
when they were
like,
based in their second home, I believe,
yeah, exactly.
down in South London.
Well, they'd only just moved there in North London
that's right.
in 1913, but. Yeah. But the second thing, which really I think captures the imagination, and for me was interesting, was that Chelsea decided to send footballs off to Tommies at the front.
Right.
Footballs for Tommies, they called it. And
Football for Tommies?
Football for Tommies.
Football for Tommies.
They published a list of the recipients. So as a genealogist, I'm a family historian. If you want your family history done, contact me. I'll sort it out.
Actually, there's a better
fee.
slug. I think Jonathan could do this.
If you do this in the style of your voiceover, if you want your family done, speak to Rick.
Well, if you want your family done, speak to Rick.
There you go. That's a good advert. We've just done you a free
You should
advert.
be on
Rick.
EastEnders. Jonathan, you should have a gig on EastEnders.
I'm doing an
Can you say
episode.
Diabolical Liberty?
Diabolical Liberty.
Fantastic.
My dad
Long
was,
Good
my dad
Friday.
was,
Long Good
my dad was
Friday.
in the show and he used to say,
That's nice. That's very nice, I must say.
Your old man, I tell you, he was
didn't know
a
he was a
cracking
minder.
actor.
He was
he was
cracking
in mind.
actor.
This is something called messmate.
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt. This is to do with genealogy. It's to do with history, so it's kind of relevant. But you know, if you're a friend of Jonathan's on Facebook, which you should be,
Yes.
if you know, because he's a darling chap. But there's also this brilliant thing that he set up in memory of his father, actually, who was a fantastic actor called Sam Kidd,
And a Chelsea fan.
and a
He
Chelsea
was.
fan. Is the reason why Jonathan's here in many respects. But there's a lovely page on Facebook about Sam Kidd with some great YouTube clips of him acting,
There are,
and it
brilliant.
is brilliant, mate.
It is
It's
a very good
lovely.
page,
So
isn't it?
I
Yeah.
presume you were responsible for getting that going.
No,
yeah?
in fact, it was somebody else called
Was
Mike,
it really?
Mike Agnew. Yeah, but I'm now an administrator.
No,
as
it's
well.
brilliant. I've
And
watched
I
that.
contribute
Yeah, it's
the
brilliant.
odd
It's
still
brilliant.
and whatever to it.
I used to
Anyway.
love his dad in Orlando.
Yeah, it was a good.
I know a bloke
One for
called
the
Orlando.
teenagers.
Yeah,
Yeah, we both know a bloke called Orlando, don't we?
We do.
He texted me and say, "I know Jonathan Kidd." We had that chat last week in the pub. We must get back to the World War.
Oh, yeah,
very,
it's
very
right.
interesting stuff.
Goodness me.
In the programme.
Tommy's footballs for Tommies.
Yes, they
this I'm
published a
interested in.
list of the recipients. So I've got a group of people who are similar genealogy researchers to myself, and we are researching the war records of these recipients. We are tracing descendants, and I've spoken to the club. I'm talking to them at the moment, and hopefully we'll have a ceremony in November 2014 where possibly we sort of give them some commemorative footballs.
Excellent.
So we find living descendants of those
Brilliant.
people that receive them. But there are other great stories around there. The Ball Boy, Chelsea.
But
not
this
many
is,
people
for,
know
for
this.
those of you watching, this is not Kevin De Bruyne, ball boy below gate 17. You know, who you'll probably you won't
never
see
see
him
again.
You'll never see him ball boying again, from what I understand. Anyway, sorry. Rick.
Well, Chelsea had the first ball boys in football.
Have we got a gallery? Have we got a picture of the first ever Chelsea ball boy? No, we don't think we have, do we?
If you've got the team photo, he's in.
Is it the team photo? We've got the team photo
Yeah.
still. Can we have a look at the team photo still? There we go.
Right.
Which
Okay.
one? Hey, I know who the bloke in the middle is, Rick.
Yeah,
He's
guess
got to
who
be
it is?
Fatty Faults.
That's Fatty
A
Faults.
man after my own heart and waistline.
And if you look to the right,
Oh, he's hiding behind this
yeah,
bloke
you
from
can
the
see him with the
Moran.
little jumper on. That's James Ridley,
That's James Ridley.
and he's lived his entire life on what was Stamford Road, now is Holmeald Road.
Wow.
And he was one of the first ball boys. Chelsea had the first ball boys in 1905.
Hang on, we'll pause and rewind. Chelsea is a football club, were the first club historically to have ball
introduce-
boys.
Yes,
Yeah.
and James Ridley was one of them.
So many years, at least 50 years before Liverpool did, for example.
Well, I couldn't possibly comment on their history.
Was that because of the track? Because it was so far away, they
I think
deliberately
there's
got.
a number.
No, it's because we were so rubbish that the ball used to go out a
I
lot.
think it's partly that. I think it's also the fact that it was to emphasise the height and girth and everything of Falk.
Folk.
You know, I mean, when we played Man United and one of their strikers had a penalty, took a shot against Falk. Falk saved it. And when the striker came off, he was berated by his manager, saying, "How the hell could you not score a goal against him?" He said there was nowhere to aim. So Chelsea wanted to emphasise this kind of his physicality.
So they employed
And
diminutive.
they get these
chaps around the goal.
what better way
Yeah.
to stand behind each goal, and and Falk would accentuate this further by carrying them off sometimes at the end of the game, like
And maybe eating
like
one
a
or two,
giant
you know.
with
You got a bit peckish.
2-5 both up.
Here's a question for you, Rick. And this, I think I talked to you about this in the pub because one of the most if you like your history and you know about the world about World War I, one of the things you're bound to know about is the. It's never really been categorically proven per se, has it?
The football truce.
Yeah, basically Germany.
truce football match.
Yeah, it's the first example of England-Germany before 1966.
Well,
or
football
36.
definitely happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I've researched this a lot. Football was happening all the time. Chelsea's footballs were involved.
Well, that's what I was getting at.
You
reckon some of the footballs that Chelsea donated would have been played on the
There's a distinct
truce?
possibility, given that the 50 footballs were donated in November and December 1914. There was a truce. Football was played, and obviously footballs were involved. And you see Chelsea sort of letters were sent afterwards saying, "Thank you, we've played it here, we've played it here." Nothing saying we played it against the Germans or anything, and they won 3-2 on penalties or anything. But
Extra time would have been a bit.
Chelsea
of a
saying,
sticky issue.
we are hearing complaints that footballs that sent off by other people to the front. So this was happening a lot. Newspapers were doing it, other organisations were doing it. But Chelsea was saying, we can guarantee that ours were not the ones that burst because ours were top quality.
Top quality.
And in fact, the East Surreys, and if you look into this, there was almost virtually a Chelsea regiment because of
There was
the
a Chelsea regiment
because of
as
the number
opposed to
of
the
people-
17th
because of the
battalion.
number of people that joined up.
Blimey.
And there were two people that recruited dozens and dozens of Chelsea supporters, and they were from the East Surreys, and the East Surreys have a football from the First World War that was walked into battle. Now, whether it was, I haven't actually seen it, I don't know whether it was one of our footballs, our Chelsea Football Club's footballs that were sent off, but it's tempting to sort of imagine that. But it doesn't matter whether it's specifically that. The fact is, the lessons to be learnt about how the club was responding to the world and how it was responding to its supporter base, the soldiers in the front, and it was making a contribution.
It seems inconceivable to me that one of Chelsea's footballs was not used in there. But the other thing that strikes me is that when you look at this from a fairly peripheral viewpoint, you always look at it in terms of there was one great football match. But it's actually, the reality is there are probably loads of them,
It was happening
which
all the-
actually lends more credence to the fact that a Chelsea football was
This
used.
was what you had this initial reaction of against football, and it should be all closed down. And in fact, had it been, we would not have figured in our first FA Cup final in 1915, the Carkey final, had it been closed down. So it's, Chelsea sort of benefited from reacting as they did against it, and I think on the front, on every theatre, football was being played. It was for recreation
Which is
behind the
great.
lines.
It's a wonderful
and
thought.
sometimes in the trenches.
In amongst that insanity, which is the only way to really describe World War
Football
I.
does that, doesn't it?
Isn't it wonderful?
It's
that it did that?
grounding. It gives you a sense of connection
Reality.
to something outside of the madness.
And
that you were
kinship.
thrown into.
It's about bonding.
Absolutely.
Right, you're working on a book for this, are you, Rick?
No, it's a project. This is a project.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be covering it in the book that I'm doing on the early years.
I'm
because it's
gonna-
an important.
Okay, no, I've got to move on, Johnny. Sorry, mate, because I just want to talk about history generally with Rick. And one of the most common things that people who listen to this show will always say to us, whether it's on Twitter, Mixler, or Facebook, or whatever, is particularly newer fans, is how on earth do you riposte the accusations usually levelled at us by certain Okay, Scousers. I know we shouldn't really. I know it's a bad word.
And Arsenal fans.
I mean, I know it's a bad word. Well, they are the Scousers of London, so it's much the same thing.
Yeah, true.
You know, but we ain't got no history. And I mean, of all the people that I know associated with Chelsea Football Club, you are probably the main man to stand up and say no. I mean, the Khaki Cup final, for example, in 1915, our first cup final was only a year after Liverpool, and I don't know if it was their first, but one of their first cup finals. So it's I mean, how do you what's the best riposte to people who say we've got no history?
Well, it's very difficult to start because it's like that thing of if you start an argument with an idiot, they'll bring you down to their level and beat you by experience.
Which is why basically I abuse them and then block them and then retweet what they've said so other people will engage with them.
Yeah, but I mean, there's all sorts. I mean, this is a great example. This book here was part of the Miscellany book.
If you want to riposte to the people who say we've got no, buy Rick's book, The Chelsea Miscellany, and then you've got it all sorted.
It's partly because you can imagine in the era of social media, I get all sorts of people. You know, if I say I'm the Chelsea historian, they'll say, "Oh, you must have an easy job." So nothing before 2003.
Oh yeah. Keep them coming. Have another fish. Have another fish.
Threads. My splitting sides. And so it was to sort of equip Chelsea fans with that I did this book. Look, if it's a Liverpool fan, you say, "What is your biggest ever attendance?" At home, they'll say, 58,787, whatever it is. Who was it against? Chelsea.
Here for the Chelsea! You're only here for the Chelsea!
Or something
Love
like
it.
that. So, you're talking about... so we didn't exist when that happened, so you don't have our highest attendance. Then you can look at that and you say, OK, so that was 58 and whatever thousand. Where does that figure in Chelsea's all-time attendances? Not even in the top 60. Yes. It's just absolute nonsense. If you're talking about history, you're talking about an engagement that people have had with that football club. 9 times we've been the best supported club in the whole of Britain. You never hear anyone mention that. No, we were the first team to break the 30,000 barrier of average home attendance.
When was that?
That was in the 1920s sometime. Yeah. The 5th highest viewing figure for any TV programme on British television is for the FA Cup final replay of Chelsea versus Leeds, 28.5 million. Not sporting TV, TV.
Any TV.
Any TV.
You mean even bigger?
28.5. Diana's funeral,
Morecambe and Wise Christmas specials.
and then Chelsea versus Leeds.
Yeah.
That's 1970. These are events. Yeah. So to say that we don't have any history, we have culture, we have history, we just didn't have the silverware that all these other teams...
And actually that's all they have. They have more success because here's the corollary of that is that Crewe Alexandra have as much history as we do or Liverpool do.
Absolutely right.
All Liverpool have is more silverware.
Right.
Now, look, bringing it up to
Tottenham, quick one for Tottenham. They've now gone 52 years without winning 53 years without winning the league. That's longer than Chelsea have ever gone in our entire history.
Well, there you go. Now, one of the things that we're all very keen on as Chelsea fans is making history rather than reliving it. And Marco's and Kelvin and Dave's book.
Great book.
Absolutely. I'm not going to plug it this week, apart from succinctly like that. What is your... I think for many people at the moment, Munich is perhaps the most significant moment of Chelsea's recent history. And I've got a lovely still here, which I nicked from Rick off Twitter. Have you got that, Greg? Which embodies this. This is a bona fide... It's the still. There you go. That is a bona fide historical artefact, isn't it, Rick? It is. You see, that'll be in a museum one day. Isn't that brilliant?
But probably sooner than you
Probably
imagine,
sooner than I think.
Seeing as I've... the Chelsea Museum.
Greg, have we got time to run another historical artefact, which is Rick at Munich? Can we have a look at this, Rick?
That's a genuine bit. The celebration, the bit that when they're
that's one of those. Is that what it is? I wonder what that is.
I thought I had a load more of it.
I thought it was a bit of Quality Street.
It's like that, isn't it?
Right, we've got this. This is shot by Rick's mate Ivor Badil just after we've won the European Cup. This is what history is all about. Can we run that, Greg? Okay. Bye.